Rewind the clock of Earth, back past the ice ages, back past the catastrophic death of the dinosaurs. Go back further still, to a time before Saturn had its rings, and before the very first tree ever cast a shadow on land. We are arriving in the Devonian period, 400 million years ago. Welcome to a world of violence. This is an alien planet, dominated by a vast and forgiving ocean where armored titans like Dunkelsteus rule with bone-crushing jaws. But in the shadows of these giants, something new has arrived. A blueprint for perfection is being drafted in blood. A creature built of cartilage, muscle, and an insatiable hunger. The shark has entered the arena. Evolution, however, does not get it right the first time. The early oceans were a laboratory for bizarre experiments. Nature was testing the limits of the shark design. Look at the Stethecanthus. It prowled the ancient reefs with a surreal, brush-like structure on its back and anvil-shaped dorsal fin that looked like a prehistoric ironing board. Its purpose remains one of paleontology's greatest mysteries. And then, there was the Helicoprion, a nightmare spawned from the depths of the Carboniferous seas. It possessed a lower jaw unique in the entire history of life on Earth, a perfectly spiraled, lethal buzzsaw of teeth that it used to slice through soft-bodied prey. These were the monsters of a forgotten age, but the ancient world was unstable. 252 million years ago, the Earth turned against life. The Great Dying, the most severe mass extinction event in history, ignited the oceans. Massive Siberian volcanoes poisoned the seas, wiping out 96% of all marine species. The armored giants vanished. The bizarre experiments were erased. The ocean became a graveyard. Yet, amidst the apocalypse, the shark blueprint survived. Generalist hunters like Otodus adapted, endured, and swam through the ashes of a dying world. They proved that while strength is important, resilience is everything. The throne of the ocean was now empty, and the golden age of the shark was about to begin. The world recovered from the great dying. Life, as it always does, found a way. We enter the Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs on land. But in the ocean, a new arms race began. The shark had survived the apocalypse, but it woke up to a world it no longer owned. From the land, giant reptiles returned to the sea. They evolved into terrifying new forms, sleek ichthyosaurs built for speed, and massive, long-necked plesiosaurs that patrolled the coasts. Suddenly, the shark was not the only titan in the water. It was pushed, challenged, and hunted. The clumsy, armored experiments of the past were obsolete. To survive this new arena of giants, the shark had to change. It had to become a perfect machine. Evolution responded with terrifying speed. The bizarre spirals and dorsal anvils disappeared. They were replaced by the sleek, hydrodynamic torpedo shape we recognize today. Enter Cretoxerina, the Ginsu shark. It was a masterpiece of lethal engineering. Growing up to 8 meters long, it possessed razor-sharp, enamel-coated teeth designed not just to grab, but to shear through flesh and bone at high velocity. It was faster, smarter, and more deadly than its ancestors. Alongside it, bottom dwellers mastered the art of invisibility, becoming perfect ambush predators. The shark blueprint was refined into the ultimate killing form, but the climax of this work came in the Cretaceous period. The oceans became the most dangerous battlefield in Earth's history. The marine reptiles reached their terrifying peak with the Mosasaurus, a 50-foot, air-breathing leviathan that was essentially a T-Rex adapted for the water. For 70 million years, sharks and mosasaurs waged a brutal war for the title of apex predator. It was a clash of titans, a daily struggle of teeth versus armor, agility versus brute force. The seas ran red with the blood of giants. And then, in a single day, the war ended. 66 million years ago, a rock from space slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula with the force of 100 million nuclear bombs. The reign of the giant reptiles ended in fire and darkness. The mosasaurs, the plesiosaurs, they all vanished. But in the deep, dark water, shielded from the firestorm above, the shark waited. The rivals were gone. The competition was erased. The stage was cleared for the rise of the ultimate king. The dinosaurs were gone. The marine reptiles had vanished into history. The Cenozoic era dawned, and the oceans grew warm and abundant. Mammals returned to the sea, evolving into the first great whales, slow, fatty, and defenseless. The ocean was now an immense and guarded banquet, and nature responded by creating the ultimate diner. Rising from the lineage of the mackerel sharks came a creature that defied comprehension. It was not merely a larger great white. It was a different beast entirely, built on a scale that the world had never seen before, and will likely never see again. Enter Otodus Megalodon, the big tooth. This was the zenith of shark evolution, growing to inconceivable lengths of up to 20 meters 60 feet and weighing over 60 tons. The Megalodon was longer than a semi-truck and heavier than 10 elephants. A modern great white shark would look like a mere snack beside it. Its jaws could open wide enough to swallow two adult humans standing side by side. Its mouth was lined with nearly 300 serrated teeth, some the size of a human hand. Its bite force was estimated at over 40,000 pounds per square inch, easily strong enough to crush a car or shatter the ribcage of a whale. For 15 million years, the Megalodon was the undisputed god of the ocean. It had no predators. It only had prey. It hunted the largest animals on Earth for breakfast. It would ambush whales from below, slamming into them like a freight train, targeting their tail flukes to cripple them before delivering the final, bone-crushing bite. Even other giants of the era, like the macroraptorial sperm whale Leviathan, gave the Megalodon a wide berth. It patrolled every warm ocean on the planet, a solitary, unstoppable king. The shark had finally achieved absolute perfection. It seemed that nothing on Earth could dethrone it. Nothing lasts forever. In the grand theater of evolution, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. For 15.00 years, the Megalodon was an untouchable god. But it was not defeated by a bigger monster. It was defeated by the planet itself. Around 2.600 years ago, the Earth began to change. Tectonic plates shifted, and North and South America violently crashed together, closing the Isthmus of Panama. This single geological event severed the flow of warm, tropical currents around the globe. The oceans began to cool. The ice caps expanded. The Ice Age had arrived. For the whales, the cold was an opportunity. They evolved thick layers of blubber and migrated towards the freezing, nutrient-rich waters of the newly formed poles. But the Megalodon was a shark built for warm waters. It required immense amounts of energy to sustain its colossal 60-ton body. As the whales swam into the freezing north and south, the Megalodon hit an invisible wall of ice. It could not follow its food. The oceans grew colder. The coastal nurseries where they raised their young began to dry up or freeze. For the first time in its reign, the ultimate apex predator felt something it had never experienced before: starvation. To make matters worse, the changing world brought a new kind of challenger. Evolution did not create a bigger shark. It created a smarter mammal. The ancestors of the modern killer whale, the orca, had entered the ocean. They were smaller, but they possessed something far more dangerous than sheer size: a highly developed brain and the ability to hunt in coordinated packs. They were faster, they could survive in freezing waters, and they began to outcompete the dying giant for the remaining food. Brute force was suddenly obsolete. Intelligence had won the arms race. Trapped in shrinking pockets of warm water, outsmarted by new rivals, and deprived of its giant prey, the king slowly starved to death. The mighty Megalodon faded into the abyss, leaving behind nothing but scattered, fossilized teeth in the mud. The reign of the giant was over. The era of the modern ocean had begun. The Megalodon is gone. The marine reptiles are stone. The armored giants of the Paleozoic are nothing more than dust. If you look at the sunlit surface of our modern oceans, you might think the age of the prehistoric monsters is truly over. But the ocean is deep, and the darkness is a time capsule. Dive with me one last time, down into the freezing, lightless void of the midnight zone. Here, the rules of the surface do not apply. Here, survival does not require a 60-ton body or teeth the size of a human hand. It requires patience. It requires a metabolism so slow, time itself seems to stop. Hidden in this crushing blackness, the earliest drafts of the shark blueprint never died. They simply retreated from the light. Meet the frilled shark, with its eel-like body and rows of backward-facing, needle-like teeth. It is a living sea serpent that has prowled the depths and changed for 80.00 years. Drifting nearby is the goblin shark, a pale phantom with a slingshot jaw, carrying a bloodline that dates back 125.00 years, predating the mighty T-Rex. And gliding silently over the abyssal mud is the six-gill shark. Most modern sharks have evolved to have 5 gills. This creature still possesses 6, a primitive trait it has carried since before the very first dinosaur took a breath. Look at this fossilized tooth. half buried in the freezing, silent mud. Millions of years ago, this single piece of enamel belonged to the undisputed god of the oceans. It was a flawless weapon, designed to shatter the ribs of leviathans. It commanded absolute fear across the globe. But today, it is nothing more than a stone, slowly being swallowed by the abyssal dust. A fragile monument to a fallen empire. Above this relic swims a tiny, glowing lantern shark. Barely the size of a human forearm, it possesses no bone-crushing bite, no terrifying size. Yet, its bloodline continues. While the mighty Megalodon starved and suffocated in a changing world, this little phantom adapted to the eternal night. It learned to create its own light. It learned the most brutal lesson of the 400,000 Zero-Year War. True dominance is not about ruling the world. It is about outlasting it. The ocean is the ultimate keeper of time. It does not judge. It does not mourn the passing of its kings. It simply absorbs them into its silent, crushing depths. It has witnessed the rise and fall of armored titans, the reign of marine reptiles, and the tragic collapse of the greatest shark to ever live. It buries them all in the exact same dark mud. And what of us? Humanity stands on the bright, shallow shores of this untamed wilderness, sending our fragile metal machines down into the dark, thinking we have conquered the earth. But the deep sea reminds us of our true place. We are merely a brief whisper in the long, violent, and magnificent history of this blue planet. The era of the prehistoric giants may be over, but the primordial sea remains. Cold, and forgiving, and waiting. Thank you for joining me on this descent into the Empire of Teeth. If you survived the journey, subscribe to the channel, and never forget, the abyss is always watching.